Welcome to today's episode on Carpe Diem Living, the podcast. I'm your host, Shane Gitmed, and today we are speaking to someone who seems amazing at what she does, and I can't wait to hear all about that. It has to do with confidence, and I know a lot of us tend to struggle with that, I myself included. It kind of comes in waves, but she's going to tell us all about confidence, how to get it, and, why she's good at teaching it. So, Maddie, why don't you tell us, about how you got into this role and your journey with that, becoming a confidence coach.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. And I'm excited to just chat a little bit. So I am a confidence coach. I started with being a wellness coach, health and wellness, which I still do. Everything that I coach on has to do with wellness, but I've learned that there's a lot more to confidence than just the surface level of it all. So being a confidence coach, I focus on wellness, on goal setting, on behavior change, on shadow work, mindset. It's a little bit of everything. I've really learned that every single person is different and there's not a one size fits all to coaching. And I love empowering females and helping them really tap into their genuine connection and confidence.
That is amazing because, we're told from, when we're little girls, like confidence, be who you are and embrace yourself, but it's not that simple,
Not at all.
There's so many things. I mean, like for me, and for instance, I grew up doing pageants as a child, and you would think someone who's, been used to, being in front of people on stage would have so much confidence. It actually was the opposite. I was very much like, it was, I think it was the pressure and just feeling like I have to be perfect because there's so many people watching me. If I mess up, that's so embarrassing. And sometimes you don't get the feedback that you thought you were going to get. So there's so many things to it. But how did you get started with being a confidence coach?
So a little bit of background about myself. Again, like you said, you go through life, like everything's about confidence, and I heard that my whole life, like, oh, confidence is key, just be confident. And you're born and you are naturally meant to be confident, and through life and society and standards and comparison, we fall out of that. So I, like most females, definitely fell out of that at a very young age. I have one of the most empowered mothers, one of the strongest mothers in the world, but through just life and stuff, I fell very short of confidence. I saw her, one of the strongest women in my life, feel so just down about her body and talk so poorly about herself. I started doing that. I fell into eating disorders. I fell into self-hatred, a little bit of self-harm, more so just self-diminishing thoughts, and it broke me. And I knew that I was meant for more, and I knew that I was shaped this way from society, and I have the chance to unravel and uncover all that. So I did a lot of personal work. I started yoga and just started trying to work on my eating disorders and working on my personal growth. And it really started developing into this whole world of wellness. There are 8 dimensions to wellness, and this is my main point of coaching, is the 8 dimensions of wellness and how we need all 8 of them to come together in our lives to feel whole and to come into one with ourselves. And I started doing the work, and I started realizing, like, oh my gosh, it's not just about going to the gym. It's not just about going and working out. It's about so much more than that. I'm so sorry. It's pouring down rain. The thunder's so loud. So it's so much more than just the surface of what I knew my whole life. I spent my whole life in the gym. My mom has been in the gym industry for 25 years. Wow. So to me, that's what I knew as health and wellness. And when I started realizing that it's about the friends, the money, the work, the spiritual wellness, your environment, there's so many other components that really impact your self-esteem and confidence. So it wasn't until I started doing the personal work that I realized, like, you know what, there's more to it than we all think. There's more to it than what society teaches you, and you have to do the work to get there. So I did the personal work, and it's taken a long time, and everyone has their days. I don't think that there's one perfect day, one perfect life for everyone. But once I realized that it's a journey. I just wrote a blog post about that too. It's a path, it's a journey, it's a process, and it's never complete. You're always going through it. So I'm not the type of person that's like, oh, just be positive and be confident. Like, there's more to it. There's work to be done to get there.
Right. And I think, growing up, like, I mean, I grew up in a time, I'm not sure for you, like if Barbies was still like a thing during your age, but like Barbies, like, I mean, me already, like I'm Asian, I'm on the thicker side. I'm not like thick and I'm not tall. And I used to compare myself to Barbies. And I remember growing up, there was a time, especially, I was in pageants. So I kind of dabbled back and forth. Like I was confident sometimes, and then I was really down on myself on other times. And I was just like there would be times where I would look at myself and like, I wish that I was skinny tall. I wish I had those long, thin legs. And that was like the standard of beauty. So I battled with confidence, things growing up. And it was hard because, sometimes you have people, complimenting you so much. And I'm sure other women have dealt with this too, where someone will compliment you and you don't even know how to accept it. You're just kind of like, oh, okay, thank you. So I struggled with that, where I'm just I almost like didn't even believe them. I was like, sure. And it's terrible. Like I've gotten better at it over time, but I think what really intrigued me about your work is the whole 8 dimensions thing. Like I have never heard that from anyone. So, okay. So with 8 dimensions, if you were to dive into like what those were, like, can you just describe to us a little bit more on what they are and like what
Absolutely. So I cover a lot of things in my coaching and stuff, and it's all about obviously wellness, being able to accept those compliments. It's a huge part of who we are. Manifestation, law of attraction, all of those outside things, the mindset work. But then we dive into the actual wellness, the wellness strategies in our lives, and it looks at 8 different components. So briefly, with all of them, 8 is kind of a lot. So I'll try and run through them fairly quickly so I don't suck up all the time talking about it.
You have plenty of time. No worries.
Perfect. So basically, start with physical wellness, and that's your basic, what most people think about as health and wellness. It's what you eat. It's exercise, and exercise doesn't mean going to the gym every day. It means moving your body and getting your blood flowing however that feels best to you. It's about your genetics. It's about your sleep. It's about taking care of your overall health. You then move into intellectual wellness, and this is the knowledge you have. Your brain should be worked out just as much as your body. So it's about, maybe you get a formal education. Maybe you prefer online courses. You do puzzles. You listen to podcasts. You film podcasts. Anything to grow your knowledge is about intellectual wellness. Emotional wellness is your basic mental health, understanding not only what you feel, but why you feel that way. It's shame resilience, it's confidence, it's self-esteem. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's all of that. And then you dive into spiritual wellness, which most people try to ignore. They try to get past that one, and it's important. It's not. Yes, exactly. And I think that this one's the most common because it's one of the most controversial. And people think spiritual wellness is, oh, I have to be tied to a religion. You don't have to be. Yeah. You can be spiritually well and not identify as any religion, but you can also identify as something. There's not a right and a wrong, but it's understanding what you believe in and why you believe in that way, and understanding your greater purpose, regardless of what religion or faith or belief system that's tied to. So yes, it can be woo-woo stuff. It can be going to church. It can be anything like that. And then you go into environmental wellness, which is obvious respect of like Mother Nature, cleaning a planet, but it's also about your space. So how clean is your living and work environment? Is it productive? Is it functional? Is it clean enough to reduce any sickness and illness coming in? And then financial wellness, which is budgeting, saving, investing, understanding the purpose and meaning in your money, because every penny you make, there's a reason for it, and there is a service or an energy or something tied to that. And then occupational wellness is your loving your job, understanding your personal mission statement and your strengths, and are you using that in your everyday life? And if you're not at work, then how are you using that? Because if you're not, then you're not going to feel fulfilled. So maybe it's through your job, maybe it's through a side hustle, maybe it's through volunteering, whatever it is. And then lastly, you have social wellness, which is friends, family, relationships, how you interact with people, also being independent and having those strong connections, but recognizing like, okay, I have everything I need for myself. So all of these 8 together really bring you into wholeness and totality and really improve your confidence. And people don't realize that even lacking in one area can bring you down. You can have all the money in the world, but if you don't have financial wellness and understand the importance of it, you're not going to do anything successful with that money. You can have all the as fit as you want to be and really understand your emotions, but if you don't have the support system behind you, you're going to feel lonely, and that's going to bring your confidence down. So it literally takes one dimension of wellness to completely change everything.
Yes. And the way I'm taking this all in is it's all about balance. Like you really just
all of it
check in with yourself and kind of look at like eagle eye view, like, okay, like where am I struggling? Where am I doing really well? How can I tap into the areas that I do need extra support in? And I think it's all about just that self-awareness that, you know, that some of us struggle with, or you're really good at, you know, but we're all human. And sometimes, you know, we fall. And, you know, during this time of COVID, I'm sure a lot of people, you know, with their mental health, it's been so difficult. Like there's people that, you know, worked in their jobs for 20 plus years, and all of a sudden they're laid off. Well, now their confidence is shot because they're like, I dedicated my career to what I've been doing, and now I just don't have a job. You know, like
100%.
Man, like that's a reoccurring theme that I've noticed the most with, you know, the season of life that we're in, is just so many people are being affected in different ways. And like, I mean, another scenario is like someone who is self-employed and they work with solely clients, and then all of a sudden they don't have clients because no one's able to afford it during this time. So many ways that this could go. So I love that you're able to, you know, explain like what each of those dimensions are, because like you said, like one dimension can be thrown off and the whole thing is not going to work. So I think that definitely helps us understand why it's so important. So you mentioned that that one of the things you do is you work with teenagers and young adults. And I think that's amazing, because I feel like those are the times where like it, you know, you're about to really like flourish into like your adulthood, and you really want to set that foundation. Like, I think that's so rewarding that you get to work with kids, you know, before they like go off into their own path.
Yeah. I struggled the most as a teenager. I think most teenagers do. I think that's not uncommon. It's not, I don't feel like I'm different because of it, but I also feel like that is a part of your journey, and you have the choice to choose that path when you enter an adult. And I think if you don't have that foundation, you are going to struggle more, and you're going to lack that confidence even more, and you're going to continue to deflate and feel deflated if you don't have that foundation. So working with teenagers is one of the most rewarding things. It's amazing to work with them because they can develop a strong understanding of their purpose early on in life. And then working with young adults is, I mean, it's amazing because the teenagers are really rewarding because I get to make a huge difference in their outcome and the thought processing and stuff. But then working with the young adults is completely different because usually they come to me. It's usually not parents forcing them or anything, and they come to me and they're like, this is what I need. And they put the work in. They are ready to transform their lives, and the results I see are insane. The things that I see these young I work with all females, and the things I see them do, I'm like, you have so much in you. Look at you go. And it's so inspiring. Like, my own clients inspire me. It's insane.
And that work, it just must feel so fulfilling, because just knowing that you're making a difference in these teenagers, young adult lives, and knowing that you're helping them, you're basically helping them set up for success, right? Because I know I could have used that type of service when I was a teenager. And because I feel like in my time, coaching wasn't as like popular. I feel like it wasn't, not that it was taboo, but like during that time, when I think of coach, I'm thinking like a sports, coach.
Yeah.
I'm not
athletic training, health,
confidence. Exactly. Like wellness coaching, like that was not like a thing. So I would have definitely benefited from a service like that. I mean, and it's hard because, another thing that affects, confidence during teenage years is the bullying. There's a lot of shaming that people do. There's a lot of like it's just really sad that that you could have all the confidence in the world, but all it takes is one bad comment, and all of a sudden you're just thrown off. And it's crazy. So like with working with kids, like, so how, I guess, like, do you work with them like through their school, or like how do these teenagers find you, like, to work with you?
So I actually when I started my coaching, my focus was just young adults. I didn't really have a focus on teenagers. I live in Orlando. I'm very active in the Orlando community. I know a lot of people from when I was a teenager, from babysitting and stuff, and now like those kids that I used to watch as like little tiny children are now teenagers. And so it started with that. It started with people just reaching out to me like, hey, like, you know our family, you know how things work. I think so and so would really benefit from this. They're struggling with this, this, and that. And slowly became word of mouth, and I still wasn't promoting it on my website. I mean, it's all online coaching. So most of my clients are everywhere. And I still wasn't promoting the teenagers. And I just kind of grew a following in the Orlando area. And I was like, it can't hurt. I mean, if people need me here, they need me other places. And I just started putting it out there, and I didn't even focus that much on it. And it just kind of came. So now I still do more work with young adults, people in their 20s into their 30s a little bit. I don't have an age limit. Whoever, if someone needs it, I don't think there's an age limit on confidence. I've just found that young adults need it the most. If I have parents reach out to me all the time, and it's every single time I'm like, yes, let's work, let's talk. And I set up a call, and I see if they're a good match. Teenagers are usually a little bit more difficult to read because most of the time their parents are saying, this is what you're going to do. Versus, and they're not really,
mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think of it as like counseling, and that's not my goal. I don't
You're right. It's completely
so I don't want them feeling forced into it. So they're more difficult to read, but every single time they end up becoming, I mean, it's weird to say that they're like friends because they're teenage. I mean, but they do. I really get involved in their lives, and I become a mentor in one sense, and that's the most incredible thing.
Oh, that is amazing, because I just know that every teenager, female or male, could use this. Like, it happens to all of us, whether we want to admit it or not. And like,
especially with social media being so present.
Yes. Oh my gosh. That's another aspect of this, is that I mean, as much as I love technology and being able to do things like this with people all over the world, I'm glad that social media wasn't as big of a thing when I was in high school, because I remember what it was like, and there was some not so nice people, and I can only the damage they could have done with just Instagram posts, Facebook posts, and Snapchat, and it's
insane. I feel like every day there's a new social media platform for people to make fun of other kids on.
Exactly. Like, you hear horrible stories all the time where, like, a kid was getting bullied online, and then they do something really terrible to, themselves, or, they have to go into severe counseling because they're dealing with all this trauma, and it's horrible. And as a mother, for me, like, my son's 3, so I have quite some time until he really, like, if he comes across this type of issue. I worry for, the next generation, and because all the things they're going to be exposed to. And even though he's little, I still tell him all the time, like, you're amazing, you are wonderful. Like, I really try to instill those positive mantras to him so he gets it. Like, even if he makes a mistake, even if, he, like, whatever it is, like, I just want him to feel like he is good enough at no matter what he does. And have you seen those videos on YouTube or even on Facebook where I saw this one that really went viral? It was a dad telling his daughter, like, you are beautiful, you're amazing. And she was saying it back to him. It was the sweetest.
It's so empowering. And it's little kids that I'm a grown adult, and I have a 3-year-old sister. My dad got remarried and stuff, and it's incredible watching her grow. It's so beautiful. And I also have a 3-year-old nephew, and I have another little 4-year-old in my life. I have 3 young kids in my life that mean the world to me. And yes, and they are the ones that I look at, and I'm like, I don't have kids right now, but I look at them and I'm like, this is why we need to be confident, because they are watching everything we say, everything we do, and they are retaining all of it. They're like little sponges at this age. And again, like I said earlier, my mom is one of the strongest females I know. She's a boss. She's amazing. It was when I was a kid and I picked up on things that she would say and her diets and all those trends. And she would tell me I'm beautiful all day. But when I look at her and I see her not treating her body that way, I'm going to follow her lead. And she's come so far. I mean, we've done this journey together and she's killing it. But I watch these little kids in my life and I'm like, they see everything we do and say, and it really impacts them and it matters.
It's so true. And that's why like everything we do around these kids, whether they're small children, teenagers, like that's why being mindful is huge. And, I can relate to what you just said, where, my mom, she was a single mom, right? And it was me and my younger sister, and she would do the same thing. Like she would tell me, you're beautiful. And she would always like motivate me to do pageants. And she really wanted me to be in the spotlight because she knew I had potential and was good at that stuff. My talent was singing. And, but then I would hear herself, like say she wanted to take a photo, like a group photo. And we would take photos. She'd be like, oh, I just look so fat. Or, oh, like, my hair. Like she would say like negative things about herself in front of me. And so that's kind of where subconsciously you kind of think like, oh, this is normal, like to think these type of things. And actually even the other day I had to take pictures for PR stuff, and I was like not happy with the photos because I had this plan of like doing a branding photo shoot, right? And
that's awesome. I love it.
Yeah. And because of COVID, I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna have to wing this. I don't know what else to like I gotta do the best I can. So I just went to like a public like garden, and it was really pretty scenery. And I guess like one of those things that we do to ourselves, kind of almost like self-sabotage, is you have like this image in your mind of what you want the pictures to look like, and then you take them and you're like, oh, like what is
not what I wanted.
Yeah. And I kept telling myself, I was like, oh, if I only could have gone to a studio and had a photographer do it, or got my hair and makeup done the way, like it just turned into like this whole thing. And I had to snap out of it and be like, girl, you are great. You are doing amazing. Like, these photos, you are your worst critic. Like if you feel confident and you feel great, it's going to be fine, So I am guilty of that, where like sometimes I feel on top of the world. I feel confident about certain things that I do, but it is a journey. I've come a long way as far as, how I view myself in photos and things. And, we have our moments where we put ourselves down, but then we have to know how to bring ourselves up. And so like, I don't look for like self-gratification or whatever on social media, but when I did was I was like, you know what, like these photos are okay. I'll just post it. And, I got a lot of like positive feedback from that. I was like, oh, okay. So it must not be so bad. And I was like,
self-talk is the biggest thing that hurts us. The way that and this is something again I coach on, is just about the way we speak to others, the way we put energy that we put out, the universe brings back. So if we're gonna put out there like, oh, I don't look good in that picture, or I don't feel good today, you're gonna not feel good all day because you put that in your head. Whereas if you wake up and say, oh, I'm feeling a little bit off, but I'm grateful for this life, I'm grateful for this body, and this is what I'm gonna do to feel great, and you're gonna do it, and you're gonna rock it, and you're gonna feel wonderful. And those little things, the little shifts that you make in the way that you speak about yourself, to other people, about your life and your days and all those things, completely shift the trajectory of how you feel completely. It's huge.
Right. It really is. And, I'm a firm believer in law of attraction and mindset. Like everything that you mentioned, I was like, I am right there with you, because for me, like that was like my biggest thing too, was mindset. Like I was one of those people, I'm a perfectionist. So when things aren't the way that I plan, of course I'm like, like what the heck, but I've gotten better. Right. I don't beat myself up over it as much. But of course we all have work to do. It's a work in progress. So, but yeah, no, that's really crazy. So I guess with confidence, so is there like a certain, let me see, how can I word it? Like an exercise that you could recommend to someone that really does need to work on their confidence, like certain mantras, or what would you say is like a good way to instill that confidence in yourself in baby steps?
Yeah. So the biggest thing, and it's the first thing I coach on, it's the first thing I answer to people, even on social media when they ask me this, the first thing I do is I even have it somewhere around me now, is every morning and night I do gratitude and journaling. And it doesn't have to be this long, extensive process.
Yeah.
For me, every single morning I wake up and I write down 5 things I'm grateful for and why I'm grateful for them. It's easy to think of something you're grateful for, but understanding the meaning behind it and the purpose it serves in your life helps you. So
Right.
I'll even wake up and write down things that I know are going to happen that day, even if it hasn't happened. So for example, this morning I wrote down, I was grateful for you and the ability to grow and connect with new people and like be able to talk to you, because that's something that's happening to me today. And I want to go into this podcast, and I want to go into it with high energy, and like I'm connecting with someone else who has the same passions and stuff. And that's incredible. So I wrote that down today, and I write down 5 things. And then I write down 3 mantras of how I want to feel that day. So maybe I'm feeling low energetically. So I'll write down, I am full of energy. Or maybe I'm feeling, maybe I'm stressed out about financials, and I write down, I am full of abundance. So you write down what you want to feel, what you expect out of yourself. And then I'll write down 3 different things that day is going to look like. So today I'm working all day. I'm doing a bunch of social media branding and stuff. So I write down, today is going to be a great day full of work and focus. So you set up your day so strong that you cannot fail, and you are naturally going to start feeling those things and feeling confident, and it's huge. And then I end each night with the same idea of, I write down the best thing about my day, the lowest part of my day. That's still important to acknowledge, because then you can recognize how you're growing and learning from those things. I write down something that I'm asking for from the universe, something I want to attract in. Write down something I'm grateful for from that day, what tomorrow will look like, and then 3 affirmations to end your night. And I personally usually do like a meditation with these, some breathing exercises. I'm a yoga instructor, so I know a lot of that kind of stuff naturally. But you know, it can literally just be writing it down, but I always encourage my clients or anyone who I give my sheets to, and I'm like, write it down and read it out loud. Put it out and speak it, because when you speak it, you really own your truth and who you are. So that's pretty much, yeah, being consistent. So every morning and every night I do that. And I suggest that to people. If you can't do it every night and every morning, pick once a day. When you know you have free time in a day, do it, because you become naturally more grateful and more confident in the things that you already have, and you will begin to grow. It's how it works. It's law of attraction.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love that, because I'm all about, you know, setting the foundation for things. Because of course, how do you expect things to work out? Just like, I mean, for me, I'm very business savvy. So I am a serial entrepreneur who has multiple businesses that are very different. And that's one thing about me that a lot of people are like, what the heck? Like, you do so many different stuff. But, yeah. So, but I think with the journaling, that's something that I used to love doing as a kid. I used to journal all the time, like good days, bad days, like, and even with a little lock on it, like I used to do the whole thing. And then I think once I got into high school, it stopped. And I'm just kind of like, why did I stop? Like, I realized that it really helped me a lot back then.
I think a lot of people refer to it as like having a diary as a kid, and it's the same thing as an adult. It's just not, I mean, you write down your thoughts and everything becomes clearer. There's a reason kids do this. There's a reason why kids have diaries, and it's because, again, we are born with the natural instinct to be confident and love ourselves, but society teaches otherwise. So when we're kids, we naturally want to write those things down. It's like second nature to us to be aware of how we feel. And through time, we learn that that's not right, or that's shameful or wrong or whatever, and we lose touch with that. So when we come back to it, we realize, like, oh my gosh, there is a purpose for that. And it really makes a difference.
Right. I love that you highlighted that, because I never thought of it that way. I was just kind of like, oh, you know, like that, like, because I think what it is when you're a child, like there's a lot more like diaries made for that age group. And then as you get older, like, of course there's notebooks, but it's not the same. So I was just kind of like, yeah, I feel like I should definitely get back into journaling. Especially one thing I do which does help me. So I have a life and business coach. Her name is Danny Kenny. Amazing. Okay. And she's helped me a lot with like with mindset and helping me, you know, attract the things I want in my life, right? And one thing she taught me was setting like alarms, like, you know, with angel numbers, like 111, 222.
Yeah.
And each one is like one of them is my favorite, where it says, I am worthy of all that my heart desires. Like things like that. Like, especially like for me, I'm a busy mom and I have 2 dogs at home and it gets crazy sometimes, right? And it's nice when these alarms go off, it forces me to stop and be like, oh, you're right. You know, like it really is like,
I've got this. Yeah.
So I think, you know, adding that gratitude journal on top of that would just be the cherry on top. Cause then I could, you know, put my thoughts in there. Is there a certain gratitude journal that you recommend? Like, what's your favorite?
So I made my own.
Oh, wow.
There's a lot of them. I think, yeah. There's a lot of them. I've used a few and I like them, but I was just very specific on what I wanted. When I went through yoga teacher training, we did our own exercises, and I was like, I didn't like any of the pre-made journals. I don't think any of them are bad. I think everyone has their own thing. So I knew from yoga teacher training and the exercises I've done in my personal life, I was like, I knew what I needed every morning and every night. So I actually ended up making these sheets my own. I don't have them on my website yet. I keep saying I'm going to put them up there, but I keep working on other workbook stuff. So I can send you a copy for sure. I'm going to eventually get them on my website. I just made these sheets and they're front and back, and I just print them out on half sheets of paper. So I get 2 per 1 sheet, and every morning and night I just fill it out.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome. Like, and I think for me, like, cause I'm one of those people that has a lot of ideas, but like converting it sometimes, like, especially with a lot of creativity, I'm like, oh, I want someone's opinion. So I think that's what holds me back. But cause I've seen like, you know, on Etsy, there's people that create their own printables and like all that type of stuff. You should definitely do that. Cause if you were really good at creating them, you could sell that.
Yes, thank you so much. I do work a lot on this kind of stuff. I have a workbook. It's like a 60-page workbook, and it's all inspired by this kind of stuff. It's through the 8 dimensions of wellness, and that's on my website. That's something I sell. I want to get more into the selling stuff. I'm just so in love with my coaching that I'm like, I'll just keep coaching, and then I'm like, oh, in my free time, I'll make more and put them on my website, and I'll get to it. I have it on. Like, I have a lot of things made. I just haven't published them yet. So they're coming.
I think they would do so well, especially since if you're creating them, you know, and especially if it's very original, it's not just like, you know, the ones that just get printed everywhere. So, I mean, I know I'm really interested in getting some. I know our listeners would be too, especially if they want to get into journaling again. I love that. Is there, okay, so for yoga, so how long have you been teaching yoga?
I've been teaching yoga for about 2 years. I've been doing yoga for as long as I could remember, really. Pretty much once I got into college, I started doing yoga. So nice.
Yeah, with yoga. So for me, I dabbled with it before I had my son, like, because the closest. So at this time I was living in the South, and the closest yoga studio was like 40 minutes away. So I was like, okay, like I'm not gonna go every day. And I worked full days during that time. I wasn't fully independent as a business owner yet. So it just was hard enough, like trying to get there. And so, so with that, so I dabbled with it, loved it. And then when I got pregnant, I stopped because I was like, there isn't as many like prenatal yoga or anything like that. So that's where it kind of ended. But then I got into Pilates when I moved to California, back home to California. So, I mean, I feel like there's a lot of power with doing those types of practices, because it really does like regenerate the body. It makes you feel relaxed and helps with your mindset. And because, I mean, everyone has their preference in the types of like workouts they do. And I've always been more about like, what is going to help me like calm down, because I have anxiety. So like, I need something that's not going to like get me all rattled up.
Get it going. Yeah.
So, I mean, that is awesome. So like before COVID, were you teaching at a studio?
Yeah, I'm still teaching at a studio, actually. I work at a studio. In Orlando, there's a yoga studio on like every corner. So I can't imagine living in a city where there's no yoga studios.
Yeah. It was a small town.
I kid you not, there is like, I can list 10 studios in like a 5-mile radius of
Oh
me.
my gosh. It's like a Starbucks, like just one everywhere.
Oh, they're all over. It's like gyms and yoga studios. You can find them on every street.
Nice.
So I work at 2 places. I work at my mom's gym. I'm teaching, and I teach at one of the bigger studios in town. When COVID started, I actually still taught. We did online classes, and there was only 2 of us instructing classes because we didn't have as many on the schedule. So I did a lot of those. And then we actually opened up, I want to say at the end of May-ish, and we're allowed to open. We have to keep distance. We have to wear masks unless we're actually on the mat teaching. We can't like walk around the room. So there's obviously limitations because of COVID, but I've been teaching the whole time. Yeah, yoga I love it. It's something I'll never give up. I'll never not teach. It's not something I want to do full time just because it's more of a passion. It's something I want to keep as a side thing. But when I first got to college, I was in this rut of just my eating disorders, my hating my body, hating everything, just not having confidence. And I was exercising every single day to lose weight and to find this self-love that I wasn't ever finding. And I took a yoga class because I just couldn't do it anymore. And I literally stopped working out. I took probably about a month to 2 months off, which I've never done. I've never stopped working out. And I just did yoga every single day. And I found this love and passion for my body. And that's what started all of this, honestly, all of the confidence. Like, I don't know if I would have gotten there without yoga, to be honest.
Yeah. It was I call it the rabbit hole. Like when you start with something that you really love and then it takes you to something else that you never expected. And that's beautiful because like I kind of went through the same thing growing up, especially I feel like a lot of this happened in high school, but in high school, same thing. Like I never was told I have body dysmorphia, but I know that the way I viewed myself was not the way people viewed me. Like I always, like say I looked at a picture in my mind, I probably thought it was like 20 pounds bigger, even though that was not true, but that's like what my mind was telling me. But yeah, I used to work out all the time and I had this, I mean, in a way, I felt good because I was like, okay, I'm smaller, like whatever. But it was the way I was working out that was not healthy. Like I was doing a lot of cardio. I was like, my focus was like sweat, like just like shrink when that's not the way you want to go about it. You know, it's more so like, how do you feel? How does your body feel? Are you overworking it? You know, like there's a lot of things to that I just had to learn over time. And I would say now I do things more in a more healthier way when it comes to fitness. Like I do what feels good to me versus like what the standard or like what like influencers will tell you. So I think, it's hard. You're always,
I always say,
hard. Yeah.
I always say exercise because you love your body, not to love your body. Don't exercise just to hopefully one day love what you look like. Do it because you want to nourish yourself and because you want to feel good in your body and move. And it doesn't have to be going to the gym. It can literally be going for a walk. It can be dancing in your living room. It can be going swimming, going for a hike. Like there's so many ways to move that don't restrict you to exercising.
Yeah, it's true. And you know what I noticed, especially in my area, is there's a lot of bike shops and they're all sold out. And I was like, but that's a good thing because that means more and more people are getting outside. Like
yes, and just moving.
Yes, like before all this, because I live in Silicon Valley, right, where everyone's techie, works in offices, and we all have just like our MacBooks, and we just work like all the time. But the situation that we're in, it's like it's forcing people to get outside, to move, and I love that more and more people are just simply like hiking and going biking. Like it's myself, I'm even trying to get a bike too because I used to bike a lot. Again in high school but I'm just like now what I plan on doing is getting a little trailer to attach to my bike and then me and my son can just like go like anywhere. So that's awesome. Yeah, so I'm just like, oh my gosh. So I mean that's great that you guys have stayed open this whole time. And then you said you were doing yoga classes online. So with your business, with the confidence coaching, do you tie in the yoga services too, or those are completely separate?
It's pretty separate. I'll do like online personal sessions. Like I private sessions of yoga. It's not really related to the confidence coaching, but I've had, even during COVID, I had some of my local people and some people outside of the state request for like personal sessions. So I'll do that, and it's all through Zoom. I'll make like custom playlists for them and all that fun stuff. But I don't really like actively do that. I don't actively offer it. It's not on my website or anything, but if people message me, I'm always down to teach yoga. It's like one of the best things in the world, but my focus is my confidence coaching. So I mostly keep them separate.
Got it. And then I guess like another thing that I wanted to touch on is like, okay, so for confidence coaching, with kids, so we already know, like, you know, bullying comes into play. What is one thing that you notice as like a reoccurring theme with your teenage clients? Because I mean, me as a parent, I'm preparing for like anything that may come my way. You know, like who knows what school is going to be like at that time? Who knows what social media is going to be like at that time? And so I guess like if you were to tell a parent today, like what to look for, you know, if their child is struggling, what are some of the, not red flags, but, you know, some of the things to like be aware of?
So two sides of this answer. The first thing would be not necessarily what to look for, but how to act as a parent. And I never tell like parents how to act. That's not, everyone can raise their kids how they want. But the biggest thing I'm noticing, and almost not every single, but almost every single teenage client I have, is how engaged their parents are and how much their parents listen, not how much their parents harp on them or tell them to do things. And of course, you got a parent, but you also need to have that understanding of like, this is a teenager going through things. And yes, it may seem immature and it may seem like typical high school stuff for them, but to them, it's not. To them, that is real life. To them, yes, that's something we went through that. We're done that. We're past that phase in our lives, but they are not. That is their real life, and that is their entire world. So just sitting and asking them questions and engaging in their lives is, I mean, that's the biggest thing. When parents talk to me and are like, my daughter needs help with this, this, and that. And I'm like, okay, so I get on the call and the parents aren't there. Everything I work with the teenagers, us, unless it's something like threatening and all that. And I'd say probably 8 to 9 times out of 10, I will have kids saying, I mean, yeah, like this is happening at school and this is happening with my friends. But honestly, like the bigger issue is like, I'm going through this at school, but my parents don't want to hear about it. Or my parents tell me I'm being dramatic or things like that. So yes, of course they do have those things going on at school and with their friends and in their bodies. But their issue and their insecurities and their confidence is more so stemmed from how their home life is. So that's like probably the biggest thing. It's just sitting, asking questions and listening. Beyond that, I think a lot of the red flags for parents to look for would be the way that their kids are talking about themselves. Like, even if they say it as jokes, but comments like, oh, like, they do something wrong and you get mad and they're like, oh, I just suck. I can't do anything right. That might seem like over dramatic in that moment, but it really shows their self-esteem and like, you know, they genuinely think that they are not good enough to do anything right. And that doesn't mean like parents shouldn't discipline and parents shouldn't tell them when they're wrong, but learn those signs of, you know, a kid can easily say, you're right, mom, like, I'm sorry, I messed up, compared to, oh, I just can't do anything right. Those little shifts, those little comments really show a lot about how kids feel about themselves. And into those are probably the biggest, like most noticeable things to just actively look for, because parents often come to the conclusion of, oh, my kid's just dramatic. And sure, their kid might be dramatic. They're going through a bunch of hormones. That's completely normal. But let's dig a little deeper and understand why they're feeling that way. So and cut it where it can. Like, let's teach them, you know, you don't suck. You're in trouble, but you don't suck because you did this thing wrong. You're learning, you're growing. It's just a matter of how you speak to them.
Giving them grace. Like, I think that is so important.
Yes.
And, like, giving grace to your kids, to yourself, like all of that is so, so huge.
Yes. And grace and gratitude are my two biggest things. If you give yourself some grace, you give your kids some grace, and you give yourself and your friends and your family gratitude, like, it's going to go so far.
Oh, I love that. And that's definitely something all of us can, you know, we need to remind ourselves that day in and day out, either for ourselves or for our kids. And I mean, for me, like I've always loved finding, that's why holistic everything has been like just my passion, because I love finding the root of things. So just like how you talk about, like, even though they may be, you know, the child may be acting dramatic or whatever, what is the reason for that? And that's where the gold is. That's where you're going to find, you know, the real problem, how to solve it. So I think that's just so important. And I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I mean, you know, especially as a mom, like we're trying to do the best we can, right? Like we don't want our children to have confidence issues or feel like they're not good enough. That's horrible. You know what I mean? Like we're all good enough. And that's really something that why I focus so much on my own healing, because I didn't want my son to hear, you know, hear me talking negatively about myself, and then he starts doing it. Like I can't, like we grew up in that. So it's like, we need to nip that in the bud and not let that carry on. So it all starts with us. And I feel like your work is just so powerful. And I love, you know, you're the first confidence coach I've ever spoken to. So this is just so amazing. I'm learning.
Thank you. I'm so glad. That's so awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. And so many people will benefit from hearing about your work and, you know, the things that you offer, your gifts, and it's also great. So for our listeners that are listening to this podcast episode, where can they find you? I mean, I'm going to put all your links in the description anyway, but I guess, you know, if you want to tell them a little bit more.
Thank you. So on Instagram, it's essentially.Madi. And then on my website, essentiallymaddie.com. That's going to have everything. My Instagram's on there, my Pinterest, my blog, and my coaching programs. Everything's listed on there, as well as I have a private Facebook group for all females who want to just learn more about wellness, confidence, and just connect with like-minded people. That's all on my website.
Perfect. And one thing that I'm going to do that I've implemented for this podcast is I've created a podcast insiders group for Carpe Diem Living. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. So any listeners that want to tune in or join that group and be able to connect with the experts that I'm speaking to directly, they can find you in there as well. So it'll be a way to constantly feed into, you know, who's interested in hearing about all of these stories through the show, and to, you know, get in contact with you directly. So I'll definitely have all of that set up. And yeah, so it's been a pleasure talking to you today. I'm so thankful for everything I've learned and the things you've shared. So yeah, just thank you so much for your time. And I look forward to, you know, connecting again in the future, and who knows, like we may collab again in the future. Like I'm open to everything.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So
thank you. Thank you so much for letting me speak, getting my word out, and just chatting. It's been so fun.
Absolutely. So yeah, so thank you all again for listening, and we'll see you next time.